Hi, thank you for waiting for me. Sorry for being late. I started a new class, a late start, and it's taking a lot of my time immediately right after my class today. So let's see here. We have a good showing. That's good. What I'd like to ask of you guys is your help because I have 6 classes at 2 schools, and I'm so all over the place. If you could please remind me where we are. We've covered, I believe, the northern colonies. Have most of you guys taken your test yet?
No, we have not taken our tests.
Okay. All right. Well, then that's a good place to start then. I'd be happy to go through some of it with you. Okay. Let's see here. Thank you
So
for
just to check, the test for this unit module is not on Canvas at all.
It's not under quizzes?
Uh, has anyone else seen it? I haven't.
Oh my goodness.
I haven't seen it, but I wasn't also sure how I was supposed to see it. So, but I haven't seen it
Yeah,
on Canvas.
it should be pretty easily available once you go to quizzes. Oh my goodness. All right. Let's see here. All right. So yes, as far as the test goes, I spent the time copying and pasting. So it should be on there, but knowing me, I did something wrong, and hopefully it's just a matter of a push of a button. Um, but yeah. So let me try to, somewhat make it up to you here. You have until the 26th, I believe, to take it. And yeah, like I said, I'm hoping that when I get done with you in this meeting, that it's a matter of pushing a button because I've taken the time to copy and paste. And yeah, I don't know how it would not be on there. Uh, so at any rate, I have a lot of questions that are like all the following except, or which of the following would not be included. And so it's lower level learning because it's memorization, but still it's still planted in an argumentative fashion, right? Where I say, okay, this given number, this given handout, this given historian, right? He says this or that. What would he use as evidence, etc. So so yeah, when you look at number one, so many of these could be gleaned from your argumentative handouts. Uh, for instance, number one should. Uh, A is briefly mentioned. It should be. If not, I know I mentioned it on a Zoom. You have B is definitely mentioned. That was the main part of the argument, right? That was the main supportive data that scientific methods are untrustworthy and inadequate. C, the ties between them universally accepted? No, no, that's the one that doesn't fit, and hence the one that you would choose because you're looking for the one that's false. Yeah, that one. If you look on number one, it should be conveyed that that's just one more instance in which there is not consensus among historians. European chronicles tend to be ethnocentric and skewed. I know I said that. I know that's a big thing to remember looking at the chronicles. Let's see here. Carbon 14 and tree ring dating do not always yield accurate estimates, and that's definitely in number one. So like I said, most of the data you could glean from these argumentative assignments. And there's no way I could keep you from doing it anyway, but I, especially on the first test, want you to. I want you to use open notes. That's fine, as long as you're learning the material. Which of the following points was not conveyed concerning Native American cultural achievements? So the 5 kind of criteria are mentioned in A, and that is definitely mentioned. I even had them listed at the bottom of number 2. Let's see here, the Neolithic or farming revolution. Was it comparable in time to the old world? Yes, and I convey that point. And again, it's not me, it's a book that I had read and I was quoting him. The evidence for the alleged signs of civilization within future U.S. territory appear earliest in the American Southwest and the Mississippi River. That's absolutely true. Remember we talked about the Pueblo people and how sometimes, you know, in China and these other areas, right? It was always near a river. It always made sense, ecosystem wise. But this one doesn't, right? I mean, although the weather has not been the same, there's not a lot of evidence that it wasn't at least a little bit arid in the Southwest. And but culture matters. They had cultural ties to Mesoamerica, so hence you know that the that last one is not true. I don't know. I believe that is in written form, but if not, I should have spoken about that on a Zoom. Their hieroglyphic system, their pantheon of gods, their astronomical practices, and especially with their fixation with the Venus, all that is tied to Mesoamerica. So culture matters, and we don't know if it was conquest, migration, or simply trade contact, etc. And then, of course, the Mississippi, I said, be ready for new burgeoning theses to come up on the Adena. Very interesting people. All right, the tendency to look down upon the Native Americans, you should be able to find that really easily. Remember, that was the last number on the first assignment. And remember, it talks about religion and property and trade. Okay, that one should be pretty easy. Section 2 of the Native American handout claims all the following except the image of Native Americans as godless savages brought forth by Spanish chroniclers caught on as they were stereotyped as such. No. You know, you had Sepulveda, you had Castillo, but they were not representative of the majority of chroniclers and writers and politicians for that matter. Remember, according to that number on number 2, I contend that Columbus's view, his very condescending view of them being uncivilized but childlike and naive, it was the one that planted itself more permanently in the Euro mind. So the others make sense. Let's see here. Spanish colonization. Now you're looking for the true one. Even by today's standards, Spanish colonization of the Americas was democratic, pluralistic, and tolerant. No, I've always had a side in me subjectively that, you know, some of it is just to play devil's advocate, but I just find Spanish history intriguing and that wants to try to defend them. But of course, I would never go that far as to A. The instructor emphasized the complete credibility of the thesis regarding the influence of the Reconquista on Spanish colonization of the Americas. I don't like that. And when I go back to the test, I'm going to try to make it a little bit more wrong. Okay. But when I say complete credibility without any caveats, I did not intend that to be true. Okay. I subjectively think you cannot ignore the Reconquista against the Moors when you see the ethos, the mentality and the warrior ethic of the conquistadores when they came here. But it's not that neat of a narrative. You know, the Conquista was 700 years long, and there was coexistence. There were periods of flourishing Renaissance and coexistence and so forth. So yeah, that one's a little bit too strong to be true. The Spanish had every reason to know that their colonization methods in America were immoral. Of course not. And remember, I did just the opposite. Remember, I used the term historicism and tried to play devil's advocate and defend the Spanish and saying that people are a product of their environment and their time, and the Spanish didn't know any better. That's the world in which they were brought up. Conflict history is the only surviving historiographical take on the missions. No. Remember, I have a very watered down thesis at the end of the Black Legend assignment, whereby it states that there's a little bit of truth to every one of the major historiographical narratives of the missions. Native American agency in combating Spanish domination, even if involving ambushes, massacres, and rebellions, constitutes a point of pride for many Native American spokesmen. Absolutely. So that's the one you're looking for. Let's see here. I'm gonna skip 6. You guys should be relatively familiar with that. It's evident in the section on Columbus and the world in which he was living, right? Trying to get himself out of poverty, where I try to defend him. And it's also evident with see here, that they didn't know any better. The historicism one. Okay, let's see here. A contribution to the Spanish, a monotheistic belief in the Christian God, yes. Elements of law from Rome and Germanic sources, yes. Modern notions of private property, of proprietorship, and city development, yes. A monetized commercial economy, no. The natives had that. Many elements of Latino culture, yes. So the monetized commercial economy is the one that's not true. And then giving credit to the Spanish, I know that's in the written form. Number 8. So take a look at that. Look, we mentioned slaves in Spanish America, and we mentioned the juez de residencia when the visitor general came into town. All right, so those are both in there. And number 9, you know from the very first number of the Black Legend, Las Casas, his brief relation of the history of the Indies, or the destruction of the Indies. That should be pretty evident right away, looking at your handout at number 1. Castillo, his true history, right? Somewhat justified the Spanish, depicting the Aztec as anything but meek sheep. That is true. Remember, he was an ex-conquistador, and he wanted to balance out and refute the narrative of Las Casas. Now, Sahagún, if you recall me going over this quote, and it's in written form in one of them, but I read it and briefly discussed it. But Sahagún, absolutely, he put the Aztec history and name and culture on the map back in Europe. Remember, he had the codices translated into Spanish. He fought for their rights to be protected from violence, to be protected from coercive conversion, etc. But he still wanted them converted. So even some of the biggest, apologists of the Native Americans, like Sahagún, they still were not above, that early modern thinking of just, these people are going to hell if they don't have Christ. And so they must, for their own good, assimilate religiously. And Sarah, you could easily use inference to get number 12, but take a look at C. The juxtaposition, right? The 2 things seemingly contradictory side by side. Praises for Spanish mission friars as benevolent, paternalistic defenders of the Native American rights, with criticism of them as ethnocentric tyrants, forcing cultural genocide upon the neophytes. That's the one that you're looking for, right? It's quite a juxtaposition. He was made a saint by the Catholic Church, but he's guilty of cultural genocide, according to the natives. Right. The Black Legend in New Mexico, right? Just recall that I said, right, if I had a professor ask me to adhere to the Black Legend, right, and so hence just really give it to the Spanish as intolerant, brutal, greedy, exploitative, religiously fanatical, etc. And I had to use U.S. territory, I would definitely choose New Mexico. And then remember, I mentioned a book for you. When Jesus came, the Corn Mothers went away. And it's very much conflict history. The Spaniards are the bad guys. They're trying to use like psychological games to get the natives to hate themselves and their own culture, their own parents, etc. All right. So there was not, and of course the order that was in New Mexico were the Franciscans, and they were pretty harsh in New Mexico. And then areas claimed by the Spanish by right of, quote, discovery before the English. Nothing was claimed. I never mentioned anything about the Northeast. All right. Although there is an exception in the Northeast. Some of the natives apparently were quite conversant in Basque. And as you may know, the Basque people are in Spain, up in the Pyrenees in the northwestern corner. And yeah, they're fascinating people. Their language, their culture, their history, their DNA are not they're not congruent with the Spanish. They're very distinct and different. Let's see here. All right, and so number 16, you should be able to glean from that number. Okay, so you have religious leaders telling you what to do, beliefs that Christ is the only way to heaven, accustomed to fighting holy wars with the Moors, etc. Then I'm going to go down to number 18, if you don't mind. A section from the Southern Colonies handout contends that colonial Virginia afforded an economically and politically equal playing field for all English colonists. No, I don't go that far. So remember, it's called capitalism for better and for worse. Now, supposedly there was an increasing degree and number of opportunities for the poor during the early modern era of like the 1600s and coming here, but the rich still had a huge advantage. All right, number 19 should be pretty easy. Take a look at David Price. Okay, David Price. His is court history. Helen Roundtree, hers is conflict history. Right, she does it from the perspective of the natives. Just something as simple as every time the English intruders are mentioned, she italicizes it and calls them strangers in the Powhatan language, Tasantasas. All right. So then we have agency among non-WASP minorities in primarily the Southern Colonies handout. So you should find evidence of all of these, with the exception of Florida. Florida did. I believe it was Carlos III offered an opportunity for slaves to be freed if they converted to the Catholic Christian faith. And so a lot of them tried to run away to make it to a place called Demose in Florida, where they could be accepted as Catholics, baptized, and protected. But as far as the English collaborating with that, making deals so that they could go down there and do that, no way. No way. Spanish experience with Indian and African labor. We mentioned the repartimiento and the encomienda. Were they immediately successfully abolished by King Charles? No. Sadly, B is true. I don't know if I have that in the writing. I don't know if I mentioned that. But that's a big stain on Las Casas's legacy as this defender of the natives, right? He said, let's use the negros instead. Let's use the black men from Africa. He says they're hardier and sturdier and more docile. All right. So let's see here. And it is true, the last one, that usually slaves that worked in or near a city had statistically a much higher chance of gaining their freedom because they most of the time were rented out as skilled workers, and however small a portion, they were allowed to keep a small portion of that money, of those funds, of the profit. All right. Let's see here. Which of the following was not mentioned as factual support of the thesis that slavery was not a racist, but a practical and convenient institution? So you have a whole section on this, right? It's a real gutsy thesis. but I know I mentioned A. Diminishing numbers and diminishing reliability of white indentured servants. Remember Bacon's Rebellion? Okay. The biological success of African Americans against New World pathogens? Absolutely. A rise in the supply and drop in the price of African slaves? Absolutely. Right about the time of Bacon's Rebellion, around 1670. The rise of multiple African kingdoms, and also the fall of multiple African kingdoms that enabled more slaves to be captured back in Africa. That absolutely is true. And I don't like this one either, because technically C is true. Diplomacy with Native Americans and making treaties with them did get in the way of the English authorities wanting to use natives as servile labor, but it's not mentioned in the section. That's like a whole other rabbit hole to go into that I chose not to. So because it's not mentioned in the section, then that technically is the one you should choose. But again, I need my wrong answers to be more wrong. Bacon's Rebellion. All right. Take a look at B. An inequitable society, especially plagued by false promises to would-be successfully independent farmers, high on expectations and low on education, can form a combustible atmosphere, just waiting for rebellion to explode or tyrannical demagogues to take over. And remember, a demagogue is someone who uses democratic practices and culture to try to curry favor from the masses of people. Usually tries to identify in his persona as one of them, as just one of the good old boys. But in reality, he's oftentimes not from their demographic. He's from usually a much higher socioeconomic origin, of being born into money and education, etc. And of course, he usually has his own agenda in becoming their leader. So some people call Nathaniel Bacon a demagogue in Bacon's Rebellion. Which of the following is false concerning the legacy of racism brought to and maintained in the Americas? So again, you should be able to find this right out of the section. It's the section right after the economic interpretation to slavery. All right. 26. Did people get to do what they wanted economically, what they wanted socially, because of the idealism of their French Louisiana leaders? No way. Right? When you read that section toward the end of the Southern Colonies handout, you see that it's conveyed that that's not the case at all. That's not the argument at all. They were short on goods. They were short on laborers. They were short on food. And so they begrudgingly allowed people to do what they wanted economically, etc. Albion seed. Albion is, I think, the Greek word for England. And so it's pretty simple on A. That's definitely conveyed. The demographic that was able to establish first effective settlement, right, of a given colony, imposed its own folkways onto the people of that colony, made the colony in its own likeness of its own class of people. And of course, right, the class that did that in Virginia and Maryland and much of the South were the gentry class. Okay. And then you have, yeah, C, definitely not. Most immigrants were not gentrymen. That's the whole idea with Bacon's Rebellion and all that, right? Is that most of them were poor white Englishmen. So you have this inequitable setup. Number 28 is about people and their alleged motives in granting religious freedom. So I'll leave that one to you. I'll leave the next two to you as well. William Penn, you should be able to get it right from the reading. All right. And remember, court history of New England was that they were progressive, they were exceptional, and that it formed the kind of seeds for American exceptionalism. So democratically elected preachers, town hall meetings in which all citizens could participate. Yep. Individual interpretation of scripture at their public schools. Not that one. The Pilgrims' Treaty of Equality with the Wampanoag Confederacy. Yep. New England's lax enforcement of the mercantilist restrictions. Yes.
Sir, if you're looking at number 29, I don't think it's on screen right now.
Let's see here. Okay, is it showing now?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I remember with William Penn, right, is that his legendary meekness. He had all this power over Pennsylvania, and he chose to allow an elected legislator, a two-branch legislator, to exist and rule with him. He gave a lot of land away for free, and then much more land at cheap, affordable prices. He went out of his way to provide credit and use his connections back in Europe to bring bankers and others to help people get like a startup loan for their own cash crop farm or their own business of whatever sort. He treated the Native Americans with symbolically with a lot of dignity and learning their dialects and meeting with them once a year to make sure that their grievances were addressed. So you got a lot to praise, right? But then the next section, right, contends that he kept pressing the Native Americans for more and more land, and he had to have known that that was going to doom them, dispossession of land in the long run. And he didn't seem to care. He didn't seem to be worried about that. All right. And so let's see here. Revisionist history of the New England colonies, a lot of that revolves around the Puritans. Their treatment of the Native Americans, their exclusivity in making it so tough to become an accepted church member and hence citizen. Their notion of the covenant, right? That they had made a covenant with God, and if people sinned in the community, that God would punish the whole community. And so it made them even more kind of overbearing, involved in the personal lives of their people. And yeah, so let's see here. Look at C. Puritan emphasis upon individual interpretation of scripture created many schisms and new churches. No way. They wouldn't put up with that. They wanted the clergy, as they had complained the same thing about the Catholic and the Anglican Church, right? They wanted the clergy, the clerical leaders, to make the decisions on doctrine. That which they opposed, again, all of those fit, right, typically with the Protestant Reformation, with the exception of E, the authority of scriptural interpretation to the ordained clergy. They were okay with keeping that. All right. Then you have the last number on the Dutch and how they supposedly had economic reasons for being tolerant, not ideological ones. And remember, that's very argumentative, because you go back to the Netherlands, right? And you look at Leiden, Amsterdam, they were quite tolerant. So it's a very argumentative, one-sided account that I gave you. It came from Russell Shorto's book on the Dutch in Manhattan. So let's see here. What data was not utilized to promote the Whig interpretation? Right. Take a look at E. The claims and actions of King Charles I. No, remember, they beheaded him. So he clearly was not a meek and benevolent monarch. And that's what you're doing with history, right? Is continuing that they have a special history of an insistence upon their rights and freedoms, etc. The historiography of Spanish mission life, you should see from the handout that I say it's all the above. Again, I have to choose a wrong answer. What I'm really trying to do is trying to set it in your head, right? Okay, these three are correct. I remember reading that from the handout, or him speaking on this one or that one, right? So I really have a reason in my head why I have so many of them formulated like this, looking for the false one, because I want you to just kind of I don't know, try to rehash everything that you've learned about a given subject. But notice I said nothing about the Spanish Inquisition and the corregidores. So that's the one that doesn't fit. And then this one I wrote on line number 40 because I changed it. Because remember I did the mestizaje, right? The admixture of Spanish and indigenous culture and blood, etc. So I rewrote that online. Hopefully I'll be able to find this, and it's a matter of pushing a button. But I didn't rewrite it on the test itself. So I'm sorry about that. All right, so are there any questions?
Will there be
What is the
any
test?
short? Will there be any short or long questions on, or short or long answer questions on the test?
No, that's a good question, Kyle. No, you're looking at it. This is the test. This is how it'll look for you online.
Okay.
Okay.
When is the test going to be posted so we can take a look at it?
As soon as possible. It'll be posted tonight. If I lost it, I'm gonna have to redo everything, and so it takes me like up to an hour. But it definitely will be done tonight, and I'll send out a message to everybody, and I'll probably end up, yeah, because we're halfway through it. It was from 9:20 to 9:26, and it's 9:23. So I'm going to tell people, don't worry about submitting it late, but just do it when you can.
Is the test timed?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is the
no,
test going to
Alexis.
be, is the text going to be a document in and of itself, or is it going to be a Canvas-based test, if you know what I'm referring to?
I believe it's a Canvas-based test. Because yeah, I instead of putting the document on there, I have to copy and paste each question and each A, B, C, D option.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay.
And then this goes to our previous homework assignments. When are those assignments going to be graded?
You guys are next. You guys are next. I greatly apologize. Yeah, I've done 2 or 3 assignments for 3 classes, and you guys are next, I promise. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Yeah. So yeah, are you guys gonna be okay as far as so we'll meet 9:30, and that will be 4 days into the next assignment. And again, I always make the promise, when I make a mistake, I will go out of my way to ensure that my students don't pay for it. So like I said, you guys could end up turning in this stuff late, and that's fine by me. Wait a second. Yeah, MJC online. So test 1, 9:28. Yeah, well, 9:28 to 10:03. So I'd still be giving you about 4 days. I was gonna say I think that's okay if you guys are okay with that. Me waiting to do the War for Independence until next week, the 30th. Because yeah, it's due the 3rd of October. But if I have a request, request from you guys, I'll do as you ask. If you wanted me to start on the next assignment.
Can you see the chats, the meeting chat?
I let's see here. Hmm. Well, that's just an invitation, general invitation.
I had a question too. Will you
Yeah.
be leaving feedback on our essays, or are you just
Yes.
gonna grade them? Okay, perfect.
Yes,
perfect.
no,
Thank
I
you.
will, even if it's just like a single sentence, I will, especially on your first couple, I'm gonna say something about what you wrote.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that because then I can kind of base that off of how I write my future ones on what I need to improve on.
Exactly. Yeah, so yeah, no problem. That's the least I can do. But no, to the question of me seeing the chat, I would like to think that I could learn. But so far, no, I don't see the chat yet. And I haven't yet. I haven't in all
Press
my
Alt
time.
H while you're inside of the Zoom meeting.
I'm sorry.
Press Alt H while you are inside of the Zoom meeting.
Alt H. Oh, wow. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. So how do we select our answers? You know what? I've not been on your side as far as taking a test. But I would imagine as they're each connected to I know with me, right? I put each option in, and then on the left, I just simply hit a green arrow, and it turns it turns solid, and it even says real briefly that that's the letter I chose as the correct answer. So I'm hoping that yours is something similar to that. Is that true?
It should be once it's posted on Canvas.
Yeah, that sounds right. That's probably how it works.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. All right. Absolutely, I could fill that out. Oh no, my access is denied. Okay. Okay, that's okay. I could definitely do that, Ezra. I don't mean to lay your business out before everybody, but yeah, I could definitely do that. All right, so I'll look for your email, and I'll get onto Canvas and put in your name, because I've done that once before, given someone specific access to Canvas. So I believe I could figure it out again. All right. So do you guys feel relatively well, relatively prepared for this test?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
I
want to
believe so.
clarify, when are you thinking of having it due? I understand you're okay with like late, but when is like your estimated due date with the conjunction with the next assignment that's going to be submitted, which by the way, we cannot see.
Oh, the next day. Okay. So what I'll probably do, what I normally do is, like I said, if I have to, I put a date at the end of the semester for test one because I messed up on it, and just whenever you guys can do it, and because I don't want it to domino. I don't want it to domino beginning on the 27th. I want you guys to jump right into the War for Independence, and the 27th through the 3rd of October. And so I'm going to start lining up the assignments for under test two, under modules, and get those set up for you. And so that hope that everyone could adhere to the time schedule for all those. But again, I've always made that promise that I would rather err on the side of being ridiculously lax than costing you, even a portion of your grade because I hurried you or I cut short your time on a given test. So I think I'm literally going to do that. I think I'm literally going to have it due technically December 12th. Because by the way, everything says the 13th. And when I put in for things to be due the 13th, it won't let me submit. And it says it must be within the time frame of the semester. And I'm like, what do you mean the time frame of the semester? And so I go one day backward to the 12th, and then it submits. So I think I'll end up probably putting that in a message to everyone just to let them know, remind them by the end of the semester that I believe everything at the midnight of the 12th turning into the 13th of December is the latest anybody could submit anything.
So you might have just answered my question, but I kind of want to clarify. So I got this email that said pretty much we have to finish. I think we've had 4 essays so far, I think,
Uh-huh.
but that we had to do all 4 of them before the test. So is that still applicable? Like, because I still have one that I hadn't finished. Do I need to do that before I take the test?
No, I mean, if it's, I mean, that's the thing is I always try to measure, being gracious with being fair to everybody else. So normally what I do is I'll be like, okay, this is good, this is strong, but it's 5, 6 days late or it's a couple weeks late. So I'm gonna take, 5 to 7 points off. And it's gonna end up being, a good solid 43 or 45 out of 50.
Okay, thank
Because
you.
I want to be gracious, but I also I want it to also be fair for those who are doing everything on time. You know what I mean? So to me, it's just a balance.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you very much.
Uh-huh. But yeah, I never take much off, so it's always worth doing the late work and submitting it for sure. But for those who are doing everything on time, I promise you that I deduct at least some points, in fairness to you who are doing it on time. Okay. So yeah, if it's already late, if I were you, I would just make sure that I've read it, right, and studied from it for in my preparation for test 1, but just hit test 1 and get it done with, and then go back and make it up if it's already late anyway, That's just me. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for your patience. All right. And another thing that I do is I have like just this OCD. I the Mestizaje part section of the Black Legend, the complete Whig history account of the English colonization, and then in another class at another school, another assignment. I just read and have tons of footnotes, and I've just worked my butt off trying to make my assignments better and so forth. And for some reason with this semester, I'm having like 2 more class meetings than in my previous semester, so that I can't just carry it over from the spring. And so I'm filling those in with literally with new assignments. And so I promise you, I have not been lazy, but obviously I have prioritized writing this new stuff over grading. And then when I did grade, like I said, I've done a few other classes that began a week sooner than you guys before doing yours. And of course, that was not personal. That was the only reason why, is they had begun a week sooner. All right. So any other comments or questions? Are you guys okay? You guys doing okay generally?
Last question. Are any of the module tests going to carry over to other tests or other assignments, or previous assignments for previous modules going to carry to other tests? And you got it.
No. Yeah, no. I don't believe in, and maybe I'm wrong on that, but I don't believe in accumulative tests. So once you're done with the assignments of the material and the test, there's no addressing it again in the future. We just chronologically move forward. All right. So Jacob or Baile, anybody else that's been kind of quiet? Anybody have any comments? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking. And No, it's very hard to juggle 6 classes, and a lot of your content is way more on time than my other professors, so
Oh, thank you.
it's
No,
not too bad.
thank you. But no, like this lapse with honest to goodness though, I spent the time copying and pasting. So I don't know where that test went, but I have a sneaking suspicion I'm going to have to start again. But as far as not having even the first assignment graded yet, that's pitiful. It's pretty much literally a month into the semester. I appreciate that, Jacob. I really do. But I do agree that, in a month, I should at least grade your first assignment. But I just wanted you to know the other stuff, not to so much rationalize not having done it, but to just let you know that I'm guilty of not making your assignments high enough of a priority, but not of just, sloth. So if you guys don't have any other questions, you guys, I was going to let you go. But honestly, if you have any questions at all, let me know. I appreciate you, even if it's getting on to me about something that I need to jump onto or etc. I appreciate the communication. I have other classes where people are either too scared, too bashful, or too indifferent, and I can't squeeze a word out of them. And so I'm glad to get communication. I will do my best, Ezra. Let's see here. Oh. Okay, Ezra, do you want me to do this in front of everybody? Is that okay? I'm not violating anybody's privacy?
No, I don't mind. I don't mind.
Okay. Oops. I thought I had a way of finding it.
If you're talking about the reinstatement form, I had sent you an email with it linked, and I had filled in my part as a student. It just needed the professor's part, so
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, I will, I promise, I'll tend to that. I'll tend to it before I get lost in another task. I'll tend to it before I get up out of this chair.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, no problem.
Yeah, I don't have any more questions, so I'm gonna get going. Thank you so much for
You,
all the help and everything. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for attending. Like I said, I love all this communication. It's a little bit anomalous. I'm not used to it, and I love it.
All right, have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. And thank you, Cadence.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, you guys. Take care.